Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Mistress Lotus Eros. Lotus Eros is a full-time Tantric Dominatrix, speaker, mentor, best-selling author, and the founder of Erotic temples. She creates sensually awakening experiences that inspire individuals to claim their erotic power as a source of deep transformation, confidence, and creative fuel in every area of their life. With a presence that is both commanding and nurturing, she weaves together sacred sexuality, dominatrix, and the somatic wisdom to liberate and elevate those who step into her world. A featured speaker at Sexpo and a respected voice in the conscious sexuality field, she blends work from pleasure with purpose, ignites pathways of empowerment, and also helps people with their embodied truth. In this week's episode, expect to learn about being a dom, sexuality, creating safety in the sexuality space, temple nights, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Mistress Lotus, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Why Lotus?
So Lotus came to me when I was in Bali and I was on this beautiful sensuality retreat, and the story of the lotus has always appealed to me, and it just really anchored in. I was sitting by this pool in this tropical kind of cabana vibes, and I've been juiced up at this amazing retreat, and it just, I don't know, I get vision I guess pictures or imagery in my mind when I get ideas. And it was just this beautiful image of a lotus. And it was like, that is going to be my name. And that's going to be the name of my business, especially because the metaphor is like coming from the mucky dirt, beneath the surface. And it takes this long process to grow up through, the pond to then bloom into this beautiful flower. But little does everyone know that underneath that flower is this kind of mucky, shadowy part of us that exists, and both are perfect and beautiful. So it's, I guess, the side of me that represents also nature and my love of the natural world. So yeah, it feels potent for me. So that's a good question to start off with.
Shani loves the lotus, so the lotus will forever be looked upon differently now with your description of it and the understanding. I'll have a different flavor on it.
What does Shani love about it?
She just loves nature. She just cries at nature in general. Is a proper tree hugger. But I'll have to ask her. I don't know what she loves about it, but I'll come back to you on that one.
I would actually be really interested. I wonder if there's a thread around that story, because I feel like a lot of people that are really drawn to the lotus flower, it's that story, that metaphor the lotus carries, that people are like, oh, it's just so beautiful, that metaphor.
Yeah. We're not here to talk about lotuses, although that is a very interesting start to the podcast. We're here to talk about sex, sexuality, BDSM, Dom, all the works. But before we get started on that, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
Amazing. So yes, as we covered already, my name is Mistress Lotus Eros, and I have stepped into and claimed my mistress self. So I work as a professional dominatrix. I travel all around Australia and the world. I'm an educator, a speaker, a teacher within the realms of somatic, sexuality, tantra, BDSM. And I guess these are the threads that light me the fuck up. I'm currently on a life mission to combine, as we so eloquently started the podcast with, my love of nature in with sexuality. So that's what's really alive for me right now, is combining nature-based ritual and I guess the seasons and the moon and these kinds of more shamanic practices to become, I guess, a shamanatrix.
Love that.
Is the title that I'm really looking at moving into over the next kind of 6 months to a year. So yeah, I guess it's a big part of where I'm at and kind of where I'm hoping to go.
That is a fascinating start, combining nature and sexuality, because I want to unpack that for a second. But even just going back a step,
I don't know if I told you this. Did I tell you I did ISTA recently?
I don't know. If you did,
Yeah.
it's gone through the cracks.
Yeah. Anyway, I found it really interesting because this is your world, not so much mine, but just the dance between the shamanism or
Mm.
shamanic and the sexuality I found fascinating. But break that down for me, nature and sexuality, like talk me through what that even looks like. I'm trying to kind of comprehend where you're going
Mm.
with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, funnily enough, the connection, the erotic connection, the energy, the frequency, if you will, is the exact same. So nature and sexuality actually comes from the same kind of archetype. So think of the wild man, Artemis, the green man, this kind of it's this wild, erotic, sensual, nature-based, guttural, grungy part of us. So they're actually the same. And I think with kind of the modern civilized man, we've forgotten that part of our eroticism, it's not this polished, beautiful, in a box kind of version of us. It's actually this untamed, like ravishing part of us that wants to be released and expressed. It's also the most suppressed part of us. So a lot of the times people have this kind of idea of what sexuality is. Like, okay, it's going to be like really soft and contained in this, but it can also be this really expressive, wild part of us. So in my book that I wrote, I was like a collaborative book called Wild Eros. A big part of my chapter was talking about how nature, the same frequency that connects us to nature, is the same energy that connects us to our sexual power and to our sexual energy.
That is fascinating already. Like I see it and I find it hard at times to understand on a much deeper level why people, like, how do we get from this primal, raw space into this domesticated, stiff, stale, beige human? Like, where are we breaking down?
Mm. Like, where have we? I mean, I feel like it's been a slow burn,
Yeah.
right, over the last
Yep.
few 100,000 years, really, isn't it? It's where I guess I don't want to blame the churches, to all the people that are religious. There's
They
nothing
played a big
wrong,
role. They
and there's
played a big
absolutely
role.
nothing wrong with religion and being religious. I think it's a beautiful ethics and morals imbued within religion. But unfortunately, a lot of religion, specifically Catholic and Christian, they have deemed these kinds of ways of being as promiscuous, or, it's the Black Madonna. It's where we see that split, between the good girl and the whore.
Mm.
So it's kind of these kind of ways of being that I think have slowly started to impact us, create shame and all these kinds of things.
What for you, what for you has been that process of accessing that primal, raw, wild energy? Like, what have you noticed your own evolution? Because I assume, and I'd love to see what society looks like through your lenses, but I assume there's a lot of people that know that they have it somewhere within them, but whether it's a fear of it, whether it's not knowing how to tame the untamed, whether it's the cultural norms, like even for you, what was the dance of accessing it, allowing it? Even the word allowing feels a bit weird to me, but like accessing it, allowing it, and then channeling it. Like, do you remember that process for you?
Absolutely. So I think having a background in wilderness guiding and actually having that deep connection to nature has been a big part of the journey for me. But honestly, it comes down to safety in the body. Because if you don't feel safe, you don't feel regulated, and you don't feel comfortable to be a bit of a silly goose and roll around in the dirt, then there's no way that you're going to want to go and access that, or go to a dungeon, or go and experience these more erotic, sensual, like even tantra, is considered kind of taboo. I feel like times are changing a little bit. Maybe it is just my my bubble
Lens.
of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But this is why it's important to go to different themed events and things to actually see what the rest of society is doing. But yeah, for me, a big part of it was I guess sorting out my habits and addictions and nervous system safety, and being able to be safe in my body. has been a big part of being able to feel safe enough to go there, to actually surrender to that energy of, oh, how does my body want to move? How do I want to like interact with nature? Like, can I be sensual in nature? Can I like enjoy the smell of the wind? And like, can I write poetry to a tree? Can I make love to, you know, the sound of the trees, like, you know, brushing against each other? And like everything gets to be this erotic dance when we can kind of step outside of that everyday kind of normal ego, like our everyday operating lives. And it's a shift. It's an ontological shift that is required to actually go into that space. And it's just not something that we're taught or, you know, that we recognize. So I think if people are like, oh my God, that's crazy, it's like, well, it probably is a little bit crazy, but you're going to have to look at things from a different lens to be able to access it. And it's just baby steps, right? It's like following the thread of something that feels juicy and exciting for the individual, and then just following that. And it doesn't have to look, it will look completely different to someone else, to you, than it would look like to me, than it would look like to anyone else. So yeah, there's my little 2 cents on that.
I love that. So I'm interested. I can't even remember. Can you remember how I came across your work?
Let me think. It's a while ago now. Was it?
Yeah,
Was it
like
through
3 or 4
Temple?
years.
Was
It
it
might.
through
Well, I came to
Temple?
obviously one of the Temple Nights. I want to go into that in a second, but I think I can't remember the thread, whether it might have been EJ Love or someone like
Yes,
that.
I just remembered it was through Emma
Yeah.
Jane Love. Yes.
Wild. You know what I'm really interested in? I went to obviously ISTA, and there's so many, like, I would consider myself pretty open. Dane Thomas calls me a normie, which,
Does he?
yeah, which relative to him, I would 100% agree with him. But I feel like I potentially dance in the middle of like those type of circles, which, you know, would be kind of the more sexuality shamanic circles and then the normies, so to speak. But how does the world look through your eyes as someone who, you know, like even when I talk about psychedelics in my world, my close friends, everyone's like, oh yeah. Whereas if I was to go out and speak to the average person, they'd freak out about psychedelics. So I'm really interested in the lens in which you see your world in terms of, I can only assume you're surrounded by people in this space, but how do you see the world of sexuality as a general rule of thumb at the moment?
I mean, I feel like it's still very taboo.
Mm.
I feel like it's still something that is, people carry a lot of shame around sexuality, especially if they've come from religious background, cultural background, different like marginalized groups, people having like body dysmorphia, especially if they're from like the trans community, or maybe they fit into kind of one of the other categories. It's just something that brings up a lot of like, because it's all about feeling worthy. Because the more worthy you feel, the more pleasure you can experience, the more you're willing to ask for what you want, the more you're connected to your desires. And that process actually involves going inside, and that it can be the hardest part. So I feel like as a whole, people are super excited. I feel like people are really starting to realize the potency of sexuality. Like I'm just noticing there's a lot more like trainings popping up, like certificates into like sexuality things, like whether it's sexological bodywork. I mean, they've been around for a while, but just other certifications and things. So I feel like people are starting to realize that, oh, our erotic energy like is the most potent, is the most creative, is the most healing energy in the universe that we know of. So let's harness that, and let's make some money off it. Let's let's create a modality around it.
I think for a lot of people, I went to your temple night, or one of your temple nights, and I fucking loved it. I think for a lot of people on the outside, the thought of going to quote unquote a sex event, which would be their school of thought,
Totally.
is terrifying. And even obviously, there was even a part of me, like I've been to a number of events, I've done a number of courses, but there was a part of me unsure as to what exactly to expect at the temple night. Can you, in really simple language, explain what a temple night is and how it's slightly different from just a full-on gangbang that is the perception that most people think of it as?
I would think of a temple night as a workshop that's focused on eroticism, mixed with I guess, an embodiment / movement, something where you're going to have to move your body, mixed with a space where you can go and use the tools that you've learned in the workshop space in like a free play, open play space. So that's kind of the simplest way that I could describe it. It's basically where the transpersonal part of you gets to meet another soul, another being, another person, to feel what's alive. And that's our goal, is to get people to meet in that space, getting away from gender, getting away from appearances. How does this soul want to meet this other? You know, how does this other want to dance and move? What actually wants to be expressed? And maybe it's erotic, but maybe it's more of a dance, like an actual dance. So I think it's kind of get people out of their minds and into their bodies and connecting to their desires.
For those that have no idea what it is, which would be a lot of people, the way that I kind of saw it is the first two. Do you always do the workshop at the start? The boundaries? Yeah, cool. So I think if I remember correctly, the first kind of 2 hours is boundaries and consent, or something around 2 hours. And for those that have never explored that, I originally thought boundaries and consent, like it's just a no and it's just a yes, like it's that simple. It's not. And it's actually a lot cooler, I think, than that. Like boundaries and consent could sound boring, but I didn't find it boring at all. And the other thing that I found amazing in your spaces, and I say your spaces is in kind of the sexuality space, when done well, and yours in particular, was there was such a level of safety that is very different from going to, like, I've been to a couple of other events. I'm like, the energy of this is shady as fuck. And that's the word that gets out to some people and puts them off going to an event like that. But the 2-hour workshop at the start and then open play where you can kind of go and test was amazing. So is that a standard format that people could expect at Temple Nights, generally speaking, or does everyone, like, I assume everyone kind of puts their own flavor on it, but what would someone expect, or what could someone expect?
Yeah, so they're all a little bit different depending on who is holding the space. And yeah, they all can be really different. That is our specific format. We do the consent workshop as a mandatory thing for all new people that have never been to our events before. But if you've been before, then we're okay if you don't come. But because we make them so fun and so interactive, pretty much everyone comes to the consent workshop anyway. And I agree, boundaries and consent can sound super boring, but it is paramount to the space not feeling shady as fuck. Like, it is what makes it feel safe. It's what makes people feel connected to each other and really embodied in their yes and their no. Because it can be really hard to be able to express a no, to ask for what we want. And these are the pieces that really change the energetics of the space. So in terms of the flow, we do have like a bunch of games and practices, and these are things that get people like warmed up. So we don't just chuck you straight from the consent workshop into open play. There's a space to really like, okay, now that I kind of know a little bit more about what I want, I know how to ask for what I want a little bit more, then we put you through some games and practices, like group, for an example, one might be like in a group of 4 and, you know, getting to take it in turns to ask for what you want. And it could just be platonic touch. It could be a head massage or a hand massage. And it's just really getting to practice to ask and then to receive that thing, and then just noticing how that feels. So I feel like the whole process is quite slow and titrated, so that by the time you get to open play, you're like, all right, I'm ready to take this to the next level.
So just for open play, just to understand that language, what you had on the night, and I'm interested because I think I asked you about red rose, white rose, black rose, and you said, I can't remember who you said, that someone else had kind of potentially come up with that concept. But for those that don't understand open play, which would be most people again, the room, are you right if I kind of just give a quick summary of my take? The room's kind of almost like divided up into different corners or different activities. And there was like massage in one, hot wax in another corner. There was, I think, shibari in another corner, maybe BDSM room. So it, again, I kind of see it as was almost like the playground, you know, like you had to do
Mm,
you almost had to do your first aid before you went into the playground.
totally.
And it was just, you know, we found it just so comfortable to transition that. And in the end, I know I had a laugh with you. I'm like, oh, I think we could go a little bit more hardcore. And we kind of explore that at some stage. But it's, I think the challenge for most people who haven't stepped into that yet would be this concept of like, oh my God, there's going to be creepy guys or creepy girls all
Mm,
over me, and it's all kind of awkward. And that just wasn't our experience at all. And having now been to a couple of those environments, it's just not. And I honestly think a big part of that is you in terms of the people that you attract. Because I have been to events where there's been some guys that I'm like, um, but generally speaking, it was amazing just how well um, oiled it was, and the environment. So the reason I keep sharing this is I think a lot of people would get a lot out of going to a temple night, and I can totally understand the resistance that, you know, a lot of people that haven't stepped into it might experience. But it's worth kind of jumping into experience whether you go on your own or whether you go with a partner as well.
100%. That's such a beautiful description. I was just getting like the flashback memories to the temple that you're talking about, and just how beautiful it is to see all these people that have walked in the door at the start of the night going, oh my God, what am I going to experience? And then seeing them like just so open and flowing around and trying this thing and trying that thing. And it's just magic, like the transformation, and like seeing people walk out at the end of the night just completely transformed. It's just the best.
And there was a lot of guys that were really uncomfortable at the start, and in their
Yeah.
own words, had been dragged along by their partners and left in a very different state. I get the feeling, and I'll be interested to know from your side of things. I get the feeling females are probably the ones leading more often than not, or is that not necessarily the case?
I mean, we get a lot of like, so we have a slow release of single male tickets because we get so many
Mm,
single males wanting to come.
yes.
So
Good
I don't
call.
know like how it kind of works, but then it's funny, then some temples we've had way too many females. So I don't know how it
Yeah,
kind of it's a funny thing. I'm still trying to work that out.
so
Like,
good.
yeah, it's hilarious.
I
But that's a
really,
very
yeah.
beautiful description. And actually, it's funny that you should mention the roses in the next level. So we've been asked so much around. So the spaces that we generally create are the kind of beginner spaces. So we're
Mm,
actually moving now. These next two are going to be full permission. So
mm,
what does that mean? It means P and V, P and A is allowed. So
mm.
these are going to be a little bit more erotic if you want it to be. So again, if you're someone who is brand new and you just want to watch, great. We've
Yeah.
had people that have come along and watched like every time because they just didn't
Mm,
get ready. You know, and they just kind of would sit on the side and they would receive just by watching other people doing the things, and then they would take it home and use it, what they learned with their partner.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not weird to watch, like it's
No.
encouraged. It's not weird if you want to just do a little bit, if you just want to hold someone's hand in the corner, if you just want to go and sit in the cuddle puddle, and or if you
Yeah.
want to go to the food station and just chat for the whole time. Like,
Mm.
I think that's the cool thing about having the different stations, is that people can just go with whatever feels alive for them and go to the different, yeah, wherever their body wants to go.
The way that I see what you just said, which is really important for people to understand, it's only weird if you're weird about, like, it shows where you're uncomfortable, really.
Mm.
So the way that you set it up, and I can't remember I think I'm Facebook friends with the blonde chick that you were kind of co-hosting with that time,
Nick.
Nick.
Yeah.
The way that you guys set it up, it felt very natural, and it's I think based on what you said, it's a really good opportunity to see where you're stuck in your own sexuality or lacking your expression. If you go there and you feel uncomfortable or you can't express, or you know, it's a really good insight into where you're at. So I'd
Mm.
probably look at it through those lenses if you do find yourself kind of challenged in that. But you know, working with a lot of couples now, I see these temple nights as a really good opportunity for them to step in and kind of expand what they're capable of for themselves, and therefore in their relationship. So I want to move on to Dom, because when we spoke last time, we did a podcast a couple of years ago, you were not Domming. So I want the ins and the outs of this, my friend, because I find this shit fascinating. So for those that are new to this space, let's go beginner, and we'll go all the way through to the edgiest shit that you've got yourself into so far.
Great. So yes, I've started working as a pro dom actually when I was studying at uni to be a wilderness guide, which is hilarious. Slightly different. So I just like a side hustle on on the side, and it was quite funny how it evolved. So I ended up, when I moved to the Sunshine Coast, went to my first temple night, got really into the kind of tantra and sacred sexuality, and did trainings and things in that space. But there was always this thread around kink. And it's funny when in life, when you kind of step into a new role or a new position or a new industry, and for me, it was moving from wilderness guiding into sexuality. It was like the universe just kept giving me opportunities to be more of a go down the kinky train. So being offered different speaking positions to talk about kink, being requested to do certain sessions, in my work, and just getting a lot of feedback. It was like, okay, this is obviously something that I need to continue and delve more into. So yeah, at the moment I work remotely. I can work out of dungeons that I hire or hotels or out of the Sunshine Coast. I'm currently in Melbourne on tour, which is amazing. So I love that I can work from anywhere. And yeah, I cater for beginners, all types of kinks, fetishes, role play, BDSM, bondage, slave master, all the kinds of flavors. So yeah, it's amazing. I love it. And I think the art of submission and domination is just so beautiful. What's actually capable when someone is willing to relinquish their power, what becomes available in that dynamic. And there's just so much, I guess, opportunity for healing and sacredness in that, which I'm really drawn to.
So let's start there then, before we go into the Dom. But for those that don't understand Southern Dom, can you explain it in simple terms? And even if you can go into, because some people might understand the kind of surface level Southern Dom, but not understand, the power or the healing modalities or availability that's within it. But can you explain it first, top level, and then the kind of intricate value in Southern Dom?
Absolutely. So a submissive, and there's a dominant in this power exchange. So you think of normal sex, it's kind of just flowing. But then when we add this element where there's an actual power exchange, it's where the sub is willing to kneel and they are going to relinquish their power. So they actually have power to begin with. It's not taken without consent. So they have power. And that is the thing with conscious kink and kink, is that they actually have to have power to begin with to give to the dom. And that's a really beautiful exchange, even from the beginning. And the dom has to be worthy enough, and I guess to be able to hold this position of power that they have over this person. And then once they do relinquish that power, what becomes available is, they get to drop into that submissive space, that subspace, where they're kind of in this like floating land where they want to serve, they want to please. And basically, as the dom, you can imprint, your specific desires onto them. You can insert new beliefs. You can help them break down shame. You can, basically create like infinite possibilities, and creativity is how I kind of like to think of kink. It's just the limit is only your imagination.
Literally. So I'm going to kind of try to peel this back layer by layer, because the reason I'm breaking it down is because I feel like the majority of people aren't even close to experiencing what's available in the world of sexuality, kink, except like, I don't know, this is your space. So I feel that you would be more impacted by this than me, but there's a part of me that is sad for the amount of people that will go to their grave never having really experienced like the depths of connection, kink, sexuality, etc. Like to go and die without even the tip of the iceberg, for me is quite sad and heartbreaking. So I can only assume that you kind of feel a similar sentiment. But if someone comes to you as a dom, like what does that mean for someone who doesn't understand this language?
As in, what does it look like for the sub to come to the dom, like that dynamic?
Yeah. So let's say that a guy's coming to you and he wants to be submissive and he wants to be domed by you. But like, what does that mean for someone who's never really explored this? Like, how does it work?
Great. So I guess this dynamic can be thought about in two different ways, and you've kind of got the service top or you've got the dominatrix. So a service top is actually in service to the sub's needs. So this would be a sub coming to a dom being like, I would like this, this, and this. And the dom is going, great, I'm going to do these things and make sure that you're pleased and going to provide this experience for you, even though they're in a submissive space and I'm in a dominant space for that dynamic. So an example would be a sub coming to me and saying, okay, I want to experience like foot fetish, golden showers, I want to be pegged, you know, and there's like this whole list of things, and I want you to call me this, and I want you to do this, and then this thing and this thing. And I'm like, okay, all right, so make sure I do this and tick off this thing, and all right, okay. And I'm telling him to sit down, I put on my dom hat, and I'm making sure that I've ticked all the boxes. I'm like, okay, he's relaxed, yeah, I'm like ticking the things. That would be a service top. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it's just one flavor of, I guess, that dynamic and how it can work in a paid situation. Generally, that falls into the escort category. Escorts that are working typically will be more of a service top. Then you've got the dominatrix. And if a sub is coming to serve a dominatrix, then they are at the whims of that dominatrix and what she wants. So it is about her pleasure. It is about her having fun. She is the one in control. If they are choosing to serve her, it is because of the things that she enjoys, and they are going to be willing to serve those things and follow those protocols. So they will be willing to do whatever it is that she is requesting, you know, within the bounds of boundaries and consent. So they're kind of two different, very different flavors, but beautiful and juicy and fun to explore.
I've never heard of it broken down like that. So do you do both, or are you more dominatrix?
I mean, I would say I'm a little bit of both, depending on the request and what comes to me. Like, I don't do anything that I don't enjoy. So it would I'm always willing just to try new things. So there's a lot of things that I haven't tried. So if I get people that come to me with certain requests, I'm like, all right, let's like try this like random stepmother role play. So there's lots of things that I get asked to do that I'm not necessarily like, you know, this is for me, but I'm willing to do it and give it a try. I'm pretty embodied in my desires and what I do like doing. But yeah, it is a bit of a dance for me, and trying to kind of, yeah, I guess stay connected to what I'm really enjoying without just putting on the role of, okay, I'm going to do this because you've paid me money for it.
Is there a lot of, I can only assume that you'd have some tools in your toolkit that the average couple doesn't have. Is there couples that come to you, I think this would be hot, and I can only assume that it happens, but let's talk it out, that are like, we don't know what the next evolution of kink looks like, or we don't know what the next evolution of BDSM. Can you teach us some things? Because both guys and girls have probably got a whole bunch of hot spots that their partner doesn't know because they don't even know. So is that a thing where like couples come to you and go, just teach us, just spend the next few hours teaching us hot spots, what we might like, and just open that can of worms? Is that a thing?
Definitely. Yeah. I've done quite a lot of couple sessions in that way, where it could be like part education, part transmission, where we actually build up to a scene. So that's something that I really love to do, because then I feel like they get to receive as well and don't just go, okay, oh my God, we just learned all this information. Now what do we do? You know, but actually being able to have an experience that then they can embody what they've learned. And then I feel like that kind of lasts a bit longer. But yeah, I've had partners that have given me, like, have bought birthday certificates for their partner. And that's been pretty fun. So like then teaching their partner all the things that then they can go and take home and use together. So that's been pretty fun.
If someone wanted to explore the world of BDSM conscious kink for the first time, like, where does someone even start? Because it's a big world, big world, and much bigger than most people have an understanding of. So like, where would you recommend someone even start?
I would go and have a look at some books, find some resources that interest them, find some local workshops, join FetLife, go to a munch, you know, talk to some people in the community, get connected, all the usual things, you know, and then that way you'll start to get a bit of a thread of what's exciting to you, like what part of this world is like feeling alive. Is it that you want to go and dress like a dog, you know, and act like a puppy and get into pet play? Or is it, you know, like what is the thread for that particular person? Then I guess getting connected with the community, doing research, hiring a dom to take you through an experience. So yeah, those would be the main ways that I would suggest.
What is a munch? I've never heard that term.
So a munch is a lunch where you talk about kink and BDSM. So it's, you go in your vanilla clothing. So vanilla is just, you know, normal. And you know, your kind of muggle outfit and go and meet with other kinksters to talk about kinks and fetishes and all the things that you might be desiring. So it's not a play space, but it's just a good chance to connect with the community.
That is fascinating. So like just at the local pub, how often do these munch things happen?
They're pretty regularly in most cities. So if you go on FetLife, which is basically Facebook for kinksters, just be careful, it is the wild, wild west. So if you do make a profile, you will get a weird message. But it is a great space to find events. So we advertise our erotic temple events on there because there is a crossover between, you know, the kink and the tantra and the sensuality. Like they're all interested, they're all ready. So it's a good place to find that kind of stuff. Typically, it's not a place for finding pro-doms because a lot of the people on there want like free interactions. It's more of like a dating, like they want relationships or play partner. Yeah, it's a cool place to start and I guess just see what's out there.
What do you think, based on what you've seen in the conscious kink, BDSM world, what do you think is the biggest piece that people are kind of getting wrong? And is it different between men and women, generally speaking, or is it a similar kind of theme that you're seeing?
Interesting. Like, as in what people are getting wrong in the kink community?
Yeah.
I feel like a big part of it is like not being connected to nervous system. So I feel like that'd be the first thing that pops into my head is more nervous system regulation. So sometimes in the more real heavy impact play and intense scenes, I personally don't feel that those people are deeply connected to their body. And whilst I don't think, and I know for a fact that kink does not equal trauma, I definitely do think though that occasionally there's scenarios where people aren't embodied in that experience and it's kind of a form of disassociation or escapism. Yeah, so I think that's probably the piece that I think people are kind of doing wrong is not taking it slow. Because I think the more slow that we take it and the more relaxed we are in our bodies, and I get it all the time with my clients, they'll be like, no, I just want to rush in. I want to get into it. And I want to do this and I want to do these really hardcore things. I'm like, cool, if your body is available for that. Like I will not push you to where your body is not ready. And I can see if their body is dysregulated. Like it's very obvious once you kind of tune into the signs, like tightened jaw, tensed muscles. Like, yes, there's going to be signs of dysregulation because it is a heightened experience, but if they're not open and relaxed and like how much are they really connecting to that touch? That's how you kind of know where someone is at. So I think that's a big piece that's missing and something that I'm super passionate about teaching and bringing into my sessions, much to my clients' dismay at times. But then at the end of the session, they thank me and they go, oh, Mistress, oh my God. And I'm like, I know, it's because you are actually connected to your breath and to your body. And I can push them further when they're more relaxed and they're more connected because they're actually more in their bodies and more connected to the experience in the moment.
I'm just tuning into my own system and I can't help but think the slowness would actually unsettle some people more than going quick because they're not used to that. Like that would be that almost would go. It almost send them backwards before they go forwards. I would think in terms of really like getting into their body and like almost unsettling them because they're not used to that state before coming out the other side of that. Is that likely?
I can see what you mean, because I also feel like, you know, impact play and like spanking and these kinds of things can bring people, like, it's like a shock. It's like, brings you to the present moment as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can go both ways. And I guess what I mean by slowness is I more mean intention.
Totally.
And I guess like awareness. Yeah, that's kind of more what I mean. It's not like a disassociation with the fastness, because sometimes we can just rush in and then all of a sudden our system's in overload and the stimulus is too much for the body to process.
Totally.
And that's when it gets stored in the body as trauma, which then they're going to have to deal with later, which isn't what I'm here for. I'm not here to do damage to people's bodies and systems.
Is that more a male problem? My assumption is that it would be, but is that not the case? Do you think males are potentially ones likely to rush it and be more dissociated than females as a general rule of thumb?
Hard to say. I don't know. I work predominantly with men. Just that's the kind of people, the clientele that I attract. So I probably couldn't speak to that, like, with full knowing. Yeah, I haven't had a lot of experience with women, but the ones that I have had, they have wanted more slowness and I guess, more depth and connection to begin with, to kind of set the scene.
So if someone wants to explore this world, I am a massive fan of temple nights, but and we've obviously spoken about Munch and FetLife, the website. If someone wants to go to some kind of events, is there an event that you think is most recognised here in Australia that's a good place to start? Or like, where do you think is the best spot for people to start if they want to kind of get amongst it?
So my friend Moonrose, she lives down in Tweed Heads and she's opened up an establishment with Anna Morrigan, and they have basically turned this incredible brothel into an adult play space, but it's focused on conscious sexuality. So I would highly recommend, if people are in that area, kind of, you know, just south of the Gold Coast, that space has events on every single weekend, from shibari to tantra to kink to temple nights. They kind of have it all in this venue. And because it is a licensed venue, you know, you can either book a sex worker or you can go to a play event where it's going to be legal to have full penetration. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. Otherwise, unfortunately, obviously, Sexpo, RIP Sexpo, is no longer around. There are a couple of other ones. They went into administration.
Oh, no.
I know. So where all the adult workers are devastated, because it was just such an amazing space for us to be able to connect other people in the industry for a whole weekend. So there is another two that have kind of popped up, Sex X and Sexhibition. So stay tuned for those. I think they'll be a little bit smaller, but yeah, here's hoping that they can kind of fill that gap because it's so needed.
And if people want to find out about you, the work that you do, where's the best spot to send them?
Great. So I'd go to my website, so just lotuserotica.com.au, or my Twitter or my Instagram is just lotus_erotica.
Beautiful. I'm going to say it one more time, guys. I totally understand if you haven't explored this space, how challenging it might be to kind of get your head around. But again, as someone who has, it's well worth it. And you just really got to kind of dip your toe in to have an understanding of what it's like. And I think people's perception, you know, hopefully over the coming years will change around that as more people experience it, more people feel comfortable with it, and more people see the opportunities for growth, healing, expansion, connection, and everything that comes with it. So appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.